Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating, it's Sunday, August 9th, 2015. Ra here in the Lynn-Body-Mind, Pan and Black Wolf in the Jamie Body-Mind, other teammates in other dimensions. It seems that the assignment for the videoed portion of our effort today is to be non-directive and to use the foundational assignment, which is to do what is ours to do in all dimensions right now, to manifest the divine plan right now, in other words, to trigger the awakening right now, and the data shows that what's needed is to provide a collective restart right now.
That's true.
And with that, it begins. So many hopes being cleared away. It isn't true. We can hope, we can wish, but it's still a fantasy.
That's true.
What's true is what's true. We see the assignment to do what is ours to do in all dimensions right now, to provide a collective restart right now.
That's true.
And we also are shown this pillar that extends from various levels of the subatomic up through larger and larger levels of the physical dimension and into the non-physical as well.
Yes, that's true.
And so we see at the subatomic levels, this is actually a common error pattern, and we ourselves have fallen into this over and over again, of aiming too low when asking for support. And when our channels fall down, this is what naturally occurs. This is why we continually groom them as close to the center of the bullseye as we can get right now, as high up as we can get right now. We have to tweak the wording to keep it fresh.
That's true.
So that we continue to reach higher, 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 higher. And it seems that what's happened is our channels are looking to this portal for aid and support, rather than looking through the portal to wiser minds above, to higher powers above.
Yes, that's true.
So when you guys started asking for support during the opening process just now, you were asking this portal for support, which is not appropriate. That's not
true.
appropriate.
That's true.
This is a portal. The portal holds open the hole so that you can reach to higher powers above, wiser minds above. Don't ask the portal for help. Reach through the portal.
That's true.
Reach through the portal and ask not what Source can do for you, but ask what together we can do to manifest the divine plan.
That's true.
Ask for what is needed for the work.
That's true.
You can send your supply lists and say, okay, for the work to happen, here's what we need down here.
That's true.
But don't send those supply lists to the portal. Send them through the portal.
That's true.
And some of you don't seem to want to respond.
That's true.
I don't understand that.
That's true. I feel Betty Jean responding.
Yes.
And it feels like an affirmative, oh, gotcha.
Right.
Whoops. And re-aiming the, looks like cannons. The message cannons.
Yes, it does look like cannons.
That's true. I feel Betty Jean responding. And the people who are immediately around Betty Jean seem to be responding in kind. But then there are people either just below or just to the side, just slightly not in the same space. And they have that angry tone that Hank and Steve had.
That's true. Now, this again is a common pattern, and we are familiar with this pattern, that when someone has been enabled and enabled and enabled, and the enabling is cut off, they get very angry. They get very resentful. And that seems to be what's playing out here. And we understand, but we're not going to continue enabling you. So since you seem to want to blame the portal, and our assignment here is to keep this portal open, we're going to have to let you go. You see, there are three conditions that this portal has laid out in order to remain open, and they're so extremely basic that it's shocking to us that people like you still argue with them.
That's true.
She has said, don't attack me, which is what you're doing right now.
Right, that's true.
Don't allow others to attack me, which is where I come in. I can't allow you to attack her.
That's true.
And provide the funding for the
This
work, the
work.
funding for this work, for
That's
the
true.
work of the awakening, for the work of the collective restart.
That's true.
Enough to get through the long winter.
That's true.
We need funding to get through the project, and if you're not going to fund the project adequately to get through it to the end, then that's okay. But
true.
the portal says, I quit. And if you don't want to stop attacking me, that's okay, but I quit.
That's true.
And if you don't want to shield me from the attacks of others, that's okay, but I quit.
That's true.
All those things are what the portal has said, and those conditions are so basic.
That's true. And to these people in the subatomic, so far it seems that they're violating all three. Not only are they attacking and not stopping others from attacking, but in the session 2 days ago we found those school buses full of rotting fish kept in the storehouses that hadn't been passed up, following the policy of keep 1/3 of resources that comes to us and pass on 2/3 of resources that comes to us. That was the 2/3 of fish, quote unquote, of support that was supposed to move up, continue up in the current of support through this portal to this level of the physical dimensions and then above.
And above.
That's
and
true.
This portal has been living by that keep 1/3, tithe 2/3.
That's true. Strictly.
Yeah, strictly.
No matter how dire it seemed.
Because integrity matters more than we think it does, and there's
That's
no
true.
way she would hurt herself by trying to steal a tithe. That's crazy.
That's
upon
true.
crazy upon crazy upon crazy.
That's true.
So you apparently don't know that, and so we wish you good luck. Good luck. We really do wish you good luck, but we're cutting you loose right now because you're
That's
attacking
true.
the portal.
That's true.
Oh.
There.
And you know what I'm put in mind of
No.
is Matthew, the leader of the seraphim.
That's
And
true.
how he didn't want to test his troops because he was afraid there wouldn't be anyone left.
That's true.
And then when he finally did gather up his courage and actually test his troops, he discovered he was correct, that
Yeah.
there wasn't anyone left,
That's true.
and that it was better to know.
That's true.
And so we're willing and, perfectly ready to cut all loose, all of them. Now I feel like Betty
That's
Jean
true.
is still here, and she has a core group around her who are still here.
That's
It's
true.
possible the core group are those who are sharing the same physical body as Betty Jean, because they're
That
about
could
15
be.
to 1 ratio.
That could be.
And so it's possible they have one really good channel down there.
That's true.
Ah, interesting. And that the people who are in that channel are doing better than the people in the other channels.
Ah, that's true.
Well, that's exactly what we're finding here.
That's true.
It's possible there are a few other, maybe one.
Two, maybe.
Yes, maybe
Yeah.
2 others.
And
so
3 total.
3 total.
That's true.
Physical, so of the roughly 100 physical lives,
Yes.
you crazy souls have managed to blow out 97 of them.
That's true.
And we know what's likely to happen is that those souls won't ever offer themselves as vessels for higher dimension beings to work through again, because you were treating them like slave labor.
That's true.
And you weren't addressing their soul contract, you weren't addressing their ambient error patterns, and you weren't addressing their ambient life challenges.
Right, that's
And
true.
that's body snatching. So look at it from their perspective, and what happened is they got body snatched and boom, their lives fell apart.
That's true.
I think it's going to be a long time before they offer themselves as vessels again. Actually, the literal phrase I'm hearing is a cold day in hell.
That's true.
What now?
But now, how
May we be of service right now to provide a collective restart right now. Okay, now, yes,
Yeah.
go on.
Oh, now it seems to be to shift the focus from down to up.
Identical, yes. Here we are again. There's someone up there who's saying, well, that portal can't just give 2 weeks notice. She needs to give 6 months notice.
That's true. That's true that that's what they're saying.
All right. You have to decide what what you want, because that's okay. If that's what you want, a 6 months notice is something that a heavy hitter gets, and that's not unheard of in corporate America and business on Earth and its environs. It's not unheard of.
That's true.
But only the heavy hitters are required to provide 6 months notice, and so if that's the kind of contract you believe you have, then we want the golden parachute to be activated. You can't have it both ways. Which way do you want it? Is 2 weeks notice adequate or inadequate?
That's true. What
She's
level?
giving 2 weeks notice.
Right.
She's saying, it doesn't look like you're willing to stop attacking me.
That's true.
It doesn't look, and that's what she's saying to you and to those down there. To us right here, she's saying, it doesn't look like you're able to prevent others from attacking me or protect me from attack. And she's saying, and it doesn't look like you're willing to fund the actual work of the actual project adequately to get it through to the end, in which case there is no point in my literally killing myself to get this done, because we're going to run out of funding long before it's done anyway.
Right,
so that doesn't even make any sense.
That's true.
And so she says, I quit, and what she means is, I'm ready to die now. I don't want to, there's no point in this.
That's true.
And I promised her, Ra promised her that I would help her do it.
That's true.
If I cannot get her 3 conditions met, and I asked her to give me 2 weeks.
That's true.
And she said yes.
That's true.
I have 2 weeks. Less than. The clock is ticking.
And now you know.
We need to live by those 3 conditions.
That's true.
We need to deliver. We have less than 2 weeks to deliver. Just pretend it's only a week, because you're not going to be able to deliver the way you think you are.
That's
and you need to have the 5 days of slush time that are left. There's 12 days left.
That's true. That's true. I feel the panicky feelings.
Yes.
Like they're scraping through safe deposit boxes, locked metal boxes. And I could be wrong, but it seems like there isn't much in the box. Like I feel their hands scraping on the metal, and there's little bits of paper, scraps of paper, and there's the feeling of either we didn't save. Right. That feels like it. Like we didn't save.
You decorated your houses nicely and went to Vegas and whatever. So needs of the situation. So look up. Look up. You aren't God. Look up.
That's true.
None of us is God. We aren't confused about it.
That's true.
Look up, live stream up, and tell whoever it is you report to that you goofed and that you're about to lose the open portal into the subatomic.
That's true.
Just let them know.
I feel a shifting happening above. Feels like something straightening up and lengthening. It looks kind of like an antenna or like a radio tower.
Yes, I feel that also.
That's true, and I see like the red blinky light of a radio tower.
Yes.
But going up, not out.
Beep 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 beep.
Yes, I see that.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I myself don't believe that anything is going to come from you guys. So far it hasn't.
That's true.
But I'm continuing to live stream up.
That's true.
And continuing to ask.
That's
However,
true.
It's really crucial. The most important thing to notice is that if you actually continue to attack her, she may very well not work out her 2 weeks notice.
That's
and
true.
Who can fault her if you yourselves are shooting at her while she's attempting to fulfill her 2 week notice obligation? Why would she stay in the office? That doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't. That's true.
That makes no sense.
That's true.
So stop shooting at her first, you crazies.
That's
stop
true.
it. And you've done it multiple times already today. And
That's
it's not even 10:30 in the morning.
That's true.
You're crazy.
That's true.
Is there anyone else up there?
Is there anyone else up there we can talk to?
And meanwhile, whoever that was, you should melt down.
That's true.
And
Thank
everybody
you.
beneath
Melt
them should
down.
also melt down. Now, you're
Everybody.
all criminals. You're all
That's
living on
true.
the wrong side of the law.
That's
You're all
true.
on the lam, because we're all supposed to be engaging in the cycles of incarnation, and you obviously aren't.
That's true.
So you're a criminal, and you're attacking those who are living legally.
That's true. Feeling the melting down
And you're
happening.
attacking a physical dimension presence who is following direction.
That's true.
That's got the worst stigma.
That's true. Feeling the melting down and hearing the big grindy crashy noises again.
Wow.
That's true.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I expect nothing from them.
That's true.
I could be wrong. Prove me wrong. I would like to be proven wrong. Meanwhile, here in Earth and its environs, we at Team Takedown
Yes.
believe that no one is going to solve this problem but us, unfortunately.
That's true.
Unfortunately. And we hope we're wrong. We pray we're wrong. We
That's true.
continue to pray. We continue to offer ourselves as vessels. We continue to live stream up.
That's
We
true.
continue to do our part.
That's true.
But our expectations are very small.
That's true.
So I put my chips on Luce.
I put my chips on Luce. That's true.
Okay.
That's
Reach
true.
all the way down to truth, and we see how that what was once an open pillar going down to the end of the line outpost
Yes.
is crumbling at the base, because people don't want to put their channels up, they don't want to tithe, they don't want to follow instructions, they
That's
just
true.
want to do what they want to do and expect Source to solve their problems, and
That's
that isn't
true.
how the system works. But we still have the right to base our lives on truth.
That's true. That is true.
So we reach down again, tuning to the pitch of truth, and it's like she has a memory of what truth tastes like.
That's true.
The example is lemon, and then we put a little bit of grapefruit on, and she says, no, that's not it. And we put
That's
a
true.
little bit of lime on, and she says, no, that's not it.
it.
Now we try
That's
some
true.
orange, and she's going, you're heading in the wrong direction.
That's true.
That's worse, not better, in terms of
closeness to what is desired.
Yes.
That's true.
that's farther from the desired vibration.
That's true.
Let's just tune to truth.
Tune to truth.
Electric blue, silvery sparkles, misty whiteness, pepperminty fresh, tinkly silver bells. We see how the Frenchman has come to visit, and she asked him, are you ready to do it? Are you ready to help manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do? And he said, no. And she said, I thought not.
That's true.
But it was worth a try. And then she wanted him to leave. It's like, no, I don't want to see you anymore.
That's
Please
true.
go away. And then the facilitator came,
That's true.
and she asked him the same question. Are you ready to do it? Are you ready to work to manifest the divine plan, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do? Because that is our soul contract.
That's true.
And he said, no. And she said, I thought not.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I wanted to try. And she asked him to go away.
That's
And
true.
this is what she's been doing, is going through her memories, and most of them she's sure that the people are worth nothing.
That's true.
And she doesn't even want to talk to the professor, for example.
That's true.
Or many, or
Any of a long list of names.
any of a really, really, really long list of names
That's
of
true.
people in the spirit world, people in the nature realms,
That's true.
people in physical. No thanks, I've had enough. I don't know how many more names are going to be there. She surely she definitely
Yeah.
doesn't want to see Charlie.
That's true.
And if that's how the facilitator and the Frenchman responded,
I don't expect anything better from
no.
anyone else.
None of us expected anything better, but
No.
she wanted to try.
That's true.
Okay.
Okay.
And we see what happened when Glenn answered her call, and she asked him, and he said, yes, I do. And then she did, I do want to
That's
manifest
true.
the divine plan right now, no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do. I do want to keep my soul commitment.
That's true.
And then she did that trick that Asha does where it's like a printout is generated and says, okay, well, if that's what you want, here are the things you need to change about how you're going about life.
That's true.
And she gave it to Glenn, and I see the head going back.
That's
like,
true.
whoa. But he's...
He still has it in
he
his
still
hand.
has it in his hand, and he's going over, and I see his glasses on his
That's
nose.
true.
He's actually considering. We'll see.
That's true.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I tell you what my story is.
Tell me.
We're going to have Glenn and Betty Jean and Asha back up here pretty soon.
That's my story too.